Blues lose both times over the weekend. They do get the 1 point on Friday versus the Vegas Golden Knights. When you start to really look at the Golden Knights, too, after you watch them play and then you look at their numbers in the NHL and that they rank at the top of basically every single category. But you know what? The Blues got in. It was a tough year. Injuries, 7-game losing streak. They're at least in the dance.
Dude,
baby,
you knew they're going to get spanked. When you get in and you're clinched and you have nowhere else to go at this point, where everybody else has to kind of figure out where they want to be, and you play a team that has almost like 10,000 people there, you see the fans, like, it was loud, like, good for you, Vegas. Way to go. You know what that's going to do? That's going to help you in that first round with that home ice advantage. Now you see fans for the first time in 2 years, and you actually feel it a little bit. When you have 4,000 fans, you don't even notice it. You just don't. But with 10,000, and maybe it's going to climb a little bit, then you're like, okay, they restricted a lot of the rules of COVID too, so the guys are a little bit more easygoing. They can go to I don't know. But the point is, they got smoked Saturday. Vegas is an unbelievable team. The Blues clawed and scratched their way into the playoffs. Can they do damage? Certainly, I think. You got Jordan Bennington. You got Colin Parayko had an awesome goal the other night. Really nice goal the other night. We just took the puck to the net. Like, no, I'm big and strong, and I'm going to do this, and there's nothing you can do about it. But Vegas is a great team, man. They are deep. They're loaded. Petro with a sick move, although the boys are flat-footed all damn game. But you see Petro kind of come down, dipsy doodle, just make a nice backhand sauce one-timer to Riley Smith, I believe it was. Just, they're loaded. But the boys could really upset a team. Like, they can. They got enough guys on the team that's won Stanley Cups, and they got Jordan Bennington.
Okay, so it looks like right now they'll probably play Vegas in the first round, unless there's some craziness, where the Blues could have really helped that cause if they had swept Vegas this weekend, and we know that's a very tall order. But can the Blues do damage? I agree with you, yes. They can, in theory. Can they do damage against Vegas? And in your opinion, besides just the obvious, which would be Jordan Bennington standing on his head for 2 weeks straight, how do the Blues beat Vegas in a 7-game series?
Well, the Vegas' goal differentials, like, they don't let goals in. So, first off, you got to score.
How about this?
It's like plus 63.
Well, I looked this up. So, per game, it's 1.22. Per game, Vegas, it's tied. It's right there, the best in the NHL, because their goals against is 2.22. Okay, that's tied for the best. And their goals for is third best in the NHL.
They don't let goals in. They have the puck the whole time. Why don't they let goals in? Well, they have two unbelievable goalies. Why don't they let goals in? Well, they have an unbelievable defense. Why don't they let goals in? Because they have Coach DeBoer, who knows how to play hard-nosed hockey, but defense first, get the damn puck out, go 100 miles an hour in a forecheck. I play for Pete DeBoer, play for him with Jersey. He's 100 miles an hour in a forecheck. In the neutral zone, you're always moving, right? I hated playing, and Andy Murray's like this a little bit, and this is just me saying it. It doesn't matter what I said, fine. But I hated playing for coaches that were kind of like, wait, stop in the neutral zone, then kind of move a little bit. Where Pete's like, go 100 miles, now you guys switch, always moving. That's where the big hits come in. That's where you can gain on guys, where you force them to get the red line. You force defensemen like Colt Parayko 15 times a game to get that red line, when guess who is going to be going 100 miles an hour, getting his momentum, 75, and he's going to hit you every single time. So I love that. I love Pete DeBoer's forecheck structure. First guy in, 100 miles an hour. Second guy in, 100 miles an hour. Read off the guy, then go here and there. Third guy. So it's always fast-paced. And so they are a really good, deep hockey team with really no flaws up and down their lineup.
So the Blues across the NHL are 14th in goals for. That's at 2.91 per game. I do think this year, of any, it's really hard to gauge that, though, because you're only playing within your division. But when you look at the fact that Colorado is number 1 in that category, Vegas is 3rd, and Minnesota is 7th in all of the NHL, you just wonder. I mean, do you think, could the West really have 3 of the, and I'll throw the Blues in there too, even though their point total is not up there, but you just wonder if 3 of the, say, top, I don't know, 6, 8 teams in the NHL are all in the West Division.
I think one is. I think Vegas is. I don't think Colorado, I don't know, man. They kind of trickled off a little bit. They got the big boys. They were kind of banged up for a little bit there, and the goaltending hasn't, I don't know, Grubauer, is he good? He is good. He's playing great this year, but is he, you got Fleury and big Robin Leonard? back to back. Who do you want to play now? You want 6'5" Robin Leonard, who just stands there and you can't. He takes up the whole damn net. Then you got a Hall of Famer. So it's like the teams are still different. You got your superstars now. Do Vegas have any big superstars up front like Nathan McKinnon and Rantanen? No, but they're balanced out with some guys, man. They're fast. They're big.
Everybody has like 15 goals.
Dude, they're all big, too. They're like pushing guys around. Oh, my God. Like, they are playoff ready. So I think Vegas is one of the top teams in the league. You compare them to Tampa? I don't know. Do you compare them to Toronto? I'd take Vegas over Toronto right now. Don't tell the Toronto media that, boy. They're going to lose their minds. I don't know if Toronto's battle-ridden. I don't know if they're ready to go.
They haven't been.
Are they? I mean, Vegas is like, no, damn it. This is our year. We have an ownership group. We have fans that are going crazy. We just almost did it. This is our year. We spent the money. We got the big boys. So Vegas is one of the best teams in the league, in my opinion. Colorado's, I don't think, is up there compared to like Tampa and maybe even like Carolina, to be honest with you.
And
Washington, Pittsburgh.
And we'll let you go here. Speaking of battle tested, though, if Vegas has to play Blues, Colorado, and heck, maybe their next series is not as difficult. Now, okay, if you meet a Tampa Bay at the end, but your first two series, if you have to play a heavy Blues team, even if you beat them, and then you're playing Colorado that leads the league, I mean, they can score.
Yeah.
I mean, Vegas, we already think is really, really good. They're going to come out of it. Now, maybe they're really banged up, too, after two tough series like that, but they're going to have to earn it.
Yeah, but who isn't going to have to earn it besides maybe Toronto? So look at Florida, and Patty just got a suspension, by the way.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
The league
Good for
went
you.
suspension happy the last
First
3 days.
hearing ever. Way to go, Patty.
That was awesome, by the way. It's surprising, first hearing ever, and he's, 10 years in the league?
10 years in the
whatever
league.
it is. But it's also hilarious when you watch that sequence and the fact that Tom Wilson was not. And then so you know, whatever happens.
I can figure that. I'll tell you that.
Right. But whatever happens after Tom Wilson, they're going to overcorrect on all these suspensions for a couple weeks, sure.
Well, it's just like the Tom Wilson thing happens 15 times a game. At the end of the game, Patty's getting escorted off, and he breaks away from the refs and goes and jumps a guy. It's just a different. It's not part of it. Scrums are part of hockey. But it's good that he finally got a ding, and he needed one. He deserved one. He's done some crazy stuff. I thought he was going to get dinged for shooting a puck in the bench in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Which he admitted on the podcast, by the way. But, he could have got a couple for that. But that was pretty cool to see. So my point is, Vegas going to get beat up by the Blues, whatever happens out of that. But Florida and Tampa are going to kick the crap out of each other. Then you got Washington, and then you got Boston and you got Pittsburgh, all these big teams out east, man. They're going to kill each other before they get to the final dance. So the one team that could just slip away is Toronto. You know, they could just creep out of it. Like, oh, we're healthy.
Right. It's funny that the one division we're all worried about is the Canadian division. Right. Not worried, but wondering how good it is.
How good is it? How good Connor McDavid, too. People were complaining that they scored like 45 of their points against Ottawa and Vancouver. And I'm like, yeah, the defense, I don't know. And he is unbelievable. You just don't know. That's the weird thing about this year. Who's really better than who? We haven't seen any of these matchups yet. So it's going to be interesting down the line with the NHL. A lot of drama, and that's good.
Can't wait, Cam. We'll let you bounce. You got podcast duties. Cam Janssen signing off. Myself, Charlie Marlow, Jim Heuer, sticking around talking Blues here. We will break a little early and have a nice long Cardinals segment before also talking about the Bear with MIKALA MCGHEE from Fox 2, who covered this story yesterday as they brought that bear. They tranquilized it and whatnot as they found it. It was in Kirkwood. It was in Brentwood. Eventually they're in Maplewood, Richmond Heights. But Jim Heuer, so again, Blues lose both games over the weekend. It was 4-3 in OT on Friday. 4-1, just kind of got lambasted in that second game. But they get the 1 point Friday, and that was enough with Colorado's win over LA in regulation to clinch a playoff spot for the third straight season. And whatever happens after this, I do think the Blues are dangerous, although it's going to be a very tough matchup. But overall, this has been a very challenging season for the Blues. Everybody had to deal with COVID, so it's not really that. But for a month or so there, they were just ravaged by injuries so much that the fact that they stayed afloat and were able to make the playoffs with some teams like Arizona and for a while there, LA nipping at them, it is a nice accomplishment.
Well, no doubt. I mean, heck, if it was the other way around we'd be sitting here. Gee whiz, this is maybe one of the worst regular seasons we've had in a long time. Major disappointment. They're supposed to get in. They got in. They took care of business, and there was a lot to deal with. No doubt about that. I mean, there are nights, and I would say even Saturday, there have been a couple of them recently where you looked at the back line and you went, in reality, you shouldn't be among the top teams. Sorry, but you got rookies like Waldman and MIKALA trying to make up ice time for veterans who aren't there anymore. That's where you get exposed. And they were exposed this weekend from time to time. And over the course of that time you talked about where injuries were aplenty throughout the lineup. That is where you get exposed, and that's where you lose hockey games. Your depth. We talk about teams with great depth, right? When the Blues are healthy, they have that great depth. But when it's not, then you see guys, MIKALA gets exposed in a play here. He doesn't get the puck out of zone. It stays in. The next thing you know, within 30 seconds, the puck's in the back of your net. Same with Waldman. He can skate like the wind, but he gets caught up ice every once in a while. We got a 2-on-1 the other way. And you're going, why was that? Well, that's because Waldman got caught up ice, and the guys didn't, it's that scenario without depth. That's where you get caught, and that's where the Blues will get exposed from time to time.
So 3 games left for the Note at the Kings tonight. Then you have 2 games left versus Minnesota Wednesday and Thursday. These are all makeups. So remember, if there weren't all the COVID postponements, the season would be over. But heck, almost every team is dealing with some postponements from over the last 4 or 5 months. So 53 games, 57 points for the Blues. They're 24-20-9. They have lost 3 straight games. And Saturday, where they were really beat, they were outshot 29-21, and that number was really lopsided early. And one thing, though, we got to remember, the Blues have actually been pretty dang good overall on the power play, really because of this surge lately with Mike Hoffman. But on Saturday, 0 for 3 on the power play, and they also gave up a shorthanded goal. But for the season, they're right there at 10th in power play percentage, 22%. I found it kind of interesting that Boston, remember a couple years ago when all we talked about was, what do they call it, the perfection line?
The perfection line.
And the amazing power play of the Boston Bruins. They're actually 11th right now at 21.9%. I'm sure Krug coming over, he was a big key of their power play as well. But the Blues overall this season have been really strong on the power play, just not on Saturday. And kind of, I just think it's interesting looking at their ranks. They're 14th, the Blues are, in goals for at 2.91. They're 11th in goals against at 3.08. And that's where Vegas, I mean, they're up there, again, tied for first at 2.22 goals against, and they're third in goals for. Minnesota's 7th, Colorado's first. So the Blues are also dealing with some really high-octane offenses they're trying to stop throughout this season, where you're only playing teams in your own division.
Yeah, that is made for an interesting scenario in terms of trying to figure out how good is this team, how bad is this team when you're going against maybe the 2 top teams, which would be in the Western Conference every other night. And look, I don't think they're overmatched in terms of if they're playing the right game. The right game is get in and forecheck and beat up on whether it's Colorado or Vegas's defense. You can't let those guys start. Once they start, it's too late. Once, as Cam just pointed out, through the neutral zone, they're flying. There's so many times in that 2-game series, it was a 4-on-2 before you looked up and go, where is everybody else? So they're lagging behind the play. Here comes a 4-on-2, and Bennington was really good. I'll say this. I wasn't worried about Saturday. This is like if you're a baseball fan, like when your team clinches the next day.
Because they're drinking?
Yeah. I'm not saying they were out, but they were like, this next game doesn't matter. So I wasn't really worried about what took place Saturday. Now, they were flat Saturday night. And yet, at one point in the third period, it was a 2-1 hockey game. And you're kind of going, wow, how is that possible? I mean, and they were outshot something horribly. So they were in striking distance there. Should have won the game on Friday. They had a 3-1 lead and didn't close that out. That's the most glaring thing for me right now, Charlie, with the hockey team is not necessarily the starts. But when they get these leads, they have to clamp down. I don't know how they're going to be able to do that in the next 3 games. But if they figure that out, I'm more optimistic about what they're doing going into the playoffs. But if they can't get that, that'll be the Achilles heel, and that, I think, is what will eliminate them in the first round for sure.
Right, and we always joke about the 2-goal lead, the most dangerous lead in hockey, and they had that when they lost on Friday. They were up 3-1 after Schwartz's goal. But that's where, too, even though absolutely, if and when the Blues play the Vegas Golden Knights in the postseason, Vegas should be favored pretty heavily. And I think the Blues would have to have a lot of breaks go their way to win that series. But then when you kind of think back, it does seem like almost every game with them goes to overtime, right? So it's not like, okay, so Saturday the score ended up being lopsided. And in the end, you were overmatched. But as you said, you had a stretch there where it's a 2-1 game and the Blues have a chance if they can just execute. But these teams have played some really, really competitive games, a lot of overtime games. So it's not like the Vegas Golden Knights are not so much better than the Blues as they are in the standings. They're not. But are they better? Of course. And all of the numbers back that up. I'm not saying the Blues can't win this series, but I think they'll have to have a lot of things go right to beat a Vegas team that's really good at every aspect. Goaltending, again, defensively, offensively, they can really do it all.
Look, their roster of overall talent is better, but it's not so much better. It's not like we're talking about Blues and Ducks difference. It's, these are two playoff teams. They're good teams. Blues are battle tested. They got enough veterans. When healthy, and that's another key. When they're all healthy, this team can compete with anybody, and they're not afraid to compete. That's another thing. There are times, if this was the 90s Scotty Bowman Red Wings, you'd walk in and you're half beat before you even walk on the ice because you're, oh my God, do you see these guys? We got to deal with them tonight.
Coming off the bus.
Yeah. You don't have to, you don't have that aspect with this St. Louis Blues team. They have confidence. They know how it is to what it takes, I should say, to win hockey games. One thing about Vegas, though, and I thought this Friday night, Leonard can be good, but when you start getting him going side to side, he's like a beached whale. He is not good going side to side.
He's a big boy.
And he covers a lot of that net. But if you can get him going side to side, that's where you beat him. And think of a couple of those goals from Friday. They were from the side of the net. And he had holes. They just went right through them. And you're going, as you watch them, they were terrible goals. And you're going, how is a guy that big let a puck go through him like that? And then there was another time where he was came out for a wraparound, missed it. And if the Blues could have got the wraparound on the far side, it was an open net because he couldn't get back. So that's the one thing I would rather play against Leonard if I'm the Blues than I would Fleury. Fleury right now is he's winning hockey games, but he's just so athletic. That's what would bother me more with him. But hey, let's take your chances. You get in, right? If you don't get in, you don't. It doesn't matter.
Flip phone Stan chiming in on the Blues before we get to Cardinals here. And by the way, get your Cardinals questions, comments, takes in for the text line. We will read them here during this segment. Any concern that the Blues lost 3 straight 3-1 leads?
100%. I really believe that's the most concerning thing. Not can they compete with whoever. It's the game management. When they're getting leads and they're not closing leads out late. They've shown over the course of the regular season they're really good on 6-on-5, right? It's the closing out of leads, and I don't know what that is. That's something that they just got to get better at. I could pick on a guy or two that's been out there the last couple times, like Zach Sanford. But
now hold on, nobody picks on Zach Sanford.
No, but the reality is he's been out there on the ice for a couple of those leads that weren't saved, and those are extra points. And the other thing, it's kind of a factor, but it's not, because you pointed out that, like Vegas, they're so good, they're so speedy, and they are. But keep this in mind, when we go to playoffs, there is no 3-on-3 overtime format. And that's where they have an unbelievable advantage in the 3-on-3 over just about anybody they play against. And they still have a good advantage of 5-on-5, but it's more equal if the Blues and Vegas are playing 5-on-5 as opposed to 3-on-3. It's just a different mindset.
It does seem like, and now I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but this Vegas team is set up, and it started with the expansion draft where they're able to compete right out of the gate. But how they're spending money in the offseason, of course, with Alex Pietrangelo, it would be, for what they're trying to do, it would be a big letdown if they don't win a cup in the next, let's say, 3 years, because they're built for that.
Yes, and for my standpoint, this is me, the evil side, this is why I want the Blues to beat them in the first round. They need to taste what it's like to have a great season and then default in the playoffs. It can't be that simple for them just to show up, spend a bunch of money, and then come and go, oh, look what we got. We bought ourselves a Stanley Cup. That's not right, at least from my standpoint. I'm like, wait a minute. Like those of us in St. Louis, we dealt with the 52-plus years of all the agony and the memories and the disappointments. It can't be to just show up and we build the super team and spent more money and here we go. We got a cup. I don't want that. I don't want to see that happen in Vegas.
It doesn't seem fair. And the second time around with the expansion draft with the Seattle Kraken, they're going to make sure all these teams are, and they've been strategizing for this, even going back to last offseason with free agency and this year's trade deadline to make sure they want to keep the guys that they want to keep and leave unprotected to not give a Seattle team the type of squad that Vegas was able to get right out of the gate. Because like you said, growing up, especially focusing on baseball expansion teams, whether it was the first time around when I was a young kid and you had Rockies and Marlins, and then you had Rays, and you almost penciled in 100 losses, right? And that's just the way it was. That team was going to be really, really bad for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and maybe you could be competitive 5 years in. So I agree with you, especially some of these long-suffering fan bases like the Blues. If they would have had to watch Vegas win a cup before them, I mean, that's going to take a lot of people off. I mean, it didn't happen that way, but it sure does not seem fair when you've struggled through the decades of heartbreak to see a team be able to just be constructed out of thin air and potentially win a cup.
Exactly right. Look, and take it another step further. Like when the expansion draft comes for the Kraken, Vegas is exempt. None of their players, which you go, wait a minute, that's even more of a bogus setup for them. So, yeah, why don't you guys go ahead, beat Colorado tonight, win your President's Trophy, and then let the Blues just upset you in the first round. Then you can officially say you're hockey fans and you've dealt with some heartbreak. Because, I mean, they've done everything right. You got to give them credit. But they need a little punch in the gut here and there to realize this is what it's like to be a real NHL fan.
Flip phone Stan also saying, quit blaming the Blues' woes on Sanford and Hoffman. Shen, Schwartz, and Tarasenko are much more to blame. They make the big bucks. That is true. And to spin it into our baseball conversation, because what you said kind of reminded me of what I was going to talk about with the Cardinals, is the fact that the Vegas Golden Knights are exempt from the expansion draft. It kind of reminds me of whenever the Cardinals get that competitive balance pick, right? And Theo Epstein over the years would complain about that, which he should, because it's not the little St. Louis Cardinals and okay, are we the biggest market? No. But the Cardinals probably don't really need the competitive balance help. They're a big market type organization. So I understand those years where the Cubs were struggling to see a Cardinals team that was running the division then get the competitive balance pick. It doesn't seem too fair.
No, it doesn't. That's a great thing you brought up there.
Okay, so Cards sweep the Rockies, of course, over the weekend. Now 21-14 on the season, the best record in the National League, second best record in all of baseball behind the Red Sox, and they've now carved themselves a nice 2-game lead over the Brewers. And it started Friday. Flaherty goes out there and shoves 7 innings, no runs, 6 strikeouts. And he did it with the bat, of course, too. But Jack Flaherty on the mound, 6-0 now. And remember that first outing where he was not good on opening day. So he only went 4 1/3 innings. If they keep him out there, if his pitch count doesn't get up, remember they still won that game big. Could have been 7-0. But 6-0 with a 2.83. He's pitching like an ace right now. And it was pretty cool to see him hit the home run off of Gomber. First of Jack Flaherty's career. And you know those guys, they're really good buddies. And they basically went up through the minors at every level together. Yes. So, that's one of those things where now Flaherty, I think he also did a good job of not really laughing about it as he was rounding the bases. You saw the smile cracked at the end there because even though he's your buddy, you don't want to show him up. But that is now bragging rights for the rest of your life. And if you watch later on, I was watching Gomber take at bats in that game, and Gomber just looked so focused in the box, like all he wanted to do was get Flaherty back.
Oh, of course.
All he wanted to do. Yeah. And I'll be the first one to say, over the years, I wasn't paying great attention to Austin Gomber's at bats, and I'm sure he didn't get that many. But I was watching him, and he had a nice little battle there. He was fouling some pitches off, and you just know so bad. Even maybe a single. He just wanted to return the favor off his guy who had just taken him yard.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. That's a little competitiveness against your buddies. No matter, if you played Little League ball or something, you'd always play against a friend or somebody you knew. You always want to get your comeuppance against them, yeah.
So Cardinals win 5-zip Friday. Saturday, they eke out the 9-8 slugfest, where Carlos Martinez, he was not great. And he said afterwards he actually got a little dinged up celebrating the Jack Flaherty home run. But went
Only
out there.
Carlos, right?
Yeah, I hate to say it. That does feel like a Carlos type thing. But you know what? He's excited in there, jumping around. And he made his start, went 5, allowed 5 earned runs, walked 5. But that old win, sometimes you get the win that you don't really deserve. And it usually makes up for a time where you shoved 7 innings and 1 run and walked away with a no decision. And Goldie in that game going off 3 for 5 with a monster home run, 3 RBIs and 3 runs. And Sunday, then, we talked about this a little bit with Cam, but I don't think we should take for granted the moments that we keep getting from Yadi and Waino, because although we want them to play forever, they're not going to. And heck, I hope they come back next year. But I don't know. And if they do, maybe next year's the last year together. But just thinking of 2 guys, we were talking in the break about whether it's Paul Molitor and Robin Yount, and growing up watching Alan Trammell and Lou Whitaker. I just think it's so cool that Yadier Molina and Adam Wainwright are so linked together with the Cardinals. And with all the talk of Albert recently, it would have been the 3 of them.
Yeah, it would have been.
And we all know Albert Pujols is one of the greatest players of all time. But when you play the first half of your career here, and then you go somewhere else for the second half, it's just not the same. Is he still beloved by Cardinals Nation? Yeah. And even though it doesn't make a great fit this year, I would love to see Albert come back, whether it's next year, whether it's for a month in September, and just finish your career with the Cardinals. But I just think it's so cool that over the last couple of years, when 3 years ago or so, we thought Waino might be done, and maybe you wouldn't get any moments like this. And go back to last year with the masks, where he throws the complete game, and they throw the mask on, and they hug. And you also just kind of had a feeling, because sometimes these guys have a sense for the moment. In the same way that you knew Nolan Arenado was going to hit at least 1 home run against his former team, which he did yesterday. But the whole storyline of the week was Adam Wainwright and the fact that his whole family had COVID the previous week, and he went out there and didn't pitch great earlier in the week. But then here it is, after saying all the great things about his wife and the fact that she was really struggling with COVID and he was having to pick up the slack. Here it is on Mother's Day. Everybody's wearing the pink. He's got the pink socks. And he almost throws the complete game shutout, but still going 8 1/3. It's just one of those sense for the moment type situations where it doesn't surprise you when Yadi and Waino have performances like that.
Oh, it's so true. And the reality is, as it's playing out, you go, okay, let's wait and see what happens. When it's over and you think about it for a little bit, Charlie, you always go, my goodness, man, they really get it. They really know when it's time to rise to the occasion. And I think you also have to say, you know what? They really are that good. Because you're like, oh, man, they're all there. I don't know. They just keep answering the bell, man. How many times, and I've said this a lot, can't keep playing Yachty, man. You got to arrest the guy. Can't keep playing Yachty. You got to arrest the guy. I've been saying that for like 6 years now. And he keeps answering the bell, and he keeps getting better and better. And if he's not injured, dude, he's playing at a super high level. He proved it again this weekend. My foot's okay. I'm going to drive in some runs. What do you get, like 4 or 5 RBIs over the weekend and just Saturday and Sunday alone?
Yeah. 3 on Saturday, and he was 2 for 4 with a double and an RBI on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And then the Waino thing, I was trying to think of guys that I've seen over the years as Cardinal pitchers who reinvented themselves. And, the one guy for me always was Bob Forsch. He'd been here a long time and came up as a power pitcher, hurt his arm, and then learned how to be a guy who could get things done with movement and this and that. Wainwright surpassed him in his quality in terms of his legacy right now. That's saying a lot for me because Forsch was always that guy. You watch him throw that curveball, and you go, and the guys know it's coming. And we got there were a couple of hitters. Blackman, best hitter on the team there, right? Veteran. He knows what's up. Curveball's coming late in the game, third at bat, through the order, still doesn't get it. And you're going, you just shake your head and go, that guy really, I'm talking about Waino, has it, and he's figured it out. He's sometimes he's going with this windup, sometimes he's going with a different windup, sometimes he's holding the ball longer. He's going with every trick you can think of to throw off anybody's rhythm, and it's working, and it's amazing to watch.
And I've heard Waino say this several times about being an old player, and he jokes about it, but he says, first, to be an old player, you got to be a good player. I mean, you have to be good enough to hang around for 15, 17 years like these guys have. And I think a big part of this, which maybe we don't talk about enough, is there are a lot of players that, whether it's they got paid, they got the big contract. In baseball, you usually have the one or two really big long-term deals, right? And then at the end, okay, if you're still productive in your mid-30s, you're going to get a couple 2-year deals or a 1-year deal, whatever it is. But sometimes you see these guys that year one of their big deal, when they sign as a free agent, all of a sudden you look at them coming to camp next year, you're like, okay, I don't see the same physical fitness regimen maybe I saw before. Really, that happens.
No, that happens a lot. Yeah.
Let's not act like it doesn't. And so with guys like Yadi and Waino, who both had their monster contracts, and they're still getting paid very nicely these last 2, 3, 4 years, whether it's on smaller, shorter-term deals. But these guys, from a fitness standpoint, they're probably in better shape now at age 38, 39. I mean, how often do we talk about Yadi coming to camp 20 pounds lighter? And some people say, did he lose too much weight? Whatever. But he knows his body, and he knows now how he has to enter a season to try to play 140 games. And same with Adam Wainwright. I mean, Adam Wainwright is in tremendous shape, and I'm sure he does everything to take care of his arm. And you see some of these guys, you get to be 35, and again, you start to look like the old baseball players from the 80s, right? With a nice little paunch there.
Yeah.
But the fact that these guys, from a leadership standpoint, that has to be a great example also to the younger players. That here are the guys who are 38 and 39 years old. They're still showing up every day, doing the work. They look the part, and they're acting the part.
Oh, without a doubt. And just every pitcher's looking out there, and they'll watch Waino, and they'll go, he's better than when I saw him a couple of years ago, right? You're going, gee whiz, he's still going. He's throwing 8 innings now, which is unheard of in today's game, like he did yesterday. And then on the Yachty side, look, if I'm Andrew Kisner, and I'm watching Yachty now that I'm finally on the roster every day, you see so many things like, gee whiz, how is he still doing what he's doing? I mean, there's so much any one of those young guys can learn from this guy on a day in, day out basis. Just watch. I mean, we, as people who cover the game and as a fan of the game, you're watching something every night. You're going, wow, you just learned something from watching how they go about their business, how they read what's going on around them. It is an amazing thing, and it's a big asset for this Cardinal team.
And on the phone line, we got from Fox 2, we call her MIKALA Money McGhee when she's doing the prep sports highlights. But because this is a serious journalism story, the Bear story, I'm just going to call you MIKALA McGhee for this one. MIKALA, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, Charlie. How are you doing?
We're doing great. And let me tell you, so Saturday, I was at Fox 2, and I'm listening in my ear, getting ready for sports, and I hear Angela Huddy talk about this bear that was only about a half mile from my house over by Mary Queen of Peace. I live in Glendale, and she was talking about people probably have bird feeders out there and the bear's going through the bird feeders. So I was driving home Saturday night. I was hoping to see this bear, but tell me, so Sunday you get in, do they tell you you're on bear watch? Like, how did it come about for you?
Basically, yes. They were like, look, there is a bear on the loose that everybody's just been raving about. So they were like, go out and see if you can go find this bear. And I was with Wyatt Salisbury. He's one of our photojournalists at the station. And me and him were kind of just joking around like, we are going to find this bear today. Like, we are going to see him. And it turned out around 6:30 on Sunday. I was stalking everyone on Facebook, following all the breadcrumb clues. And we rolled up. We were the first one on the scene. Got to see the bear. I called him Louis because he had the spirit of a St. Louisan. He wasn't backing down from anybody. So that's how it all went down.
I do think it's very interesting where some of these stories, you do really have to, as you said, follow the breadcrumbs on social media, because a lot of times now people will call in a TV station or a radio station and say, hey, there's a bear in my backyard. But really, nowadays, they're going to put it on social media. So I saw, pictures of the bear over by Glendale, Oakland. I saw somebody put a picture of it near Brentwood. It ended up right in Richmond, Maplewood Heights. Richmond Heights, yeah, sorry. So tell us, how did you finally get to the scene to see where the bear was?
Well, we first started in Brentwood at the swim club there. We had some reporting. There was a tennis coach coaching some kids there who saw the bear pop out of the woods, and some families were just freaking out, kind of intrigued, but also freaking out that they just saw a bear pop out of the woods and walk by them. But they said that the bear was minding his own business. He wasn't, charging towards anybody or acting crazy. So everyone, there was, Charlie, if I could count the amount of cars that were pulling up, have you seen the bear? Where is the bear? Everyone was trying to find this bear. And I was like, everyone's posting and keeping up to date about its location. So I just continued to follow the thread on Facebook where people were commenting where they last saw it. And I saw Buck Avenue. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, Wyatt, we got to go there. And as soon as we pulled up, we just saw him chilling in that big old tree that he was sitting in for 3 hours. So, yeah, it was literally kind of like finding the golden goose egg for everyone. It was a fun little search.
We're talking with MIKALA MCGHEE. So was this just in somebody's yard? And as you said, it's 3 hours. So what happens? They tranquilize the bear and it still stayed up there. Just tell us kind of how it all went down.
Yeah, so like you said, he was in several areas. He started in Sunset Hills. He made his way to Brentwood. He eventually got to Richmond Heights. He literally just crawled up this big, I don't know what kind of tree it was, but it was just a big solid tree in someone's front yard. People were posting pictures of it, so the fire department showed up, policemen showed up, and then eventually the Missouri Department of Conservation was able to get there. And he made a plan with all the officers and authorities that were there. He was going to tranquilize the bear. He shot him once. We all thought he was out and everything, but then he just popped up. It was like he came out of the dead, popped up and was active. So we hit him with another tranquilizer, was still moving. Like I said, this bear did not go out without a fight, really. But so many people were out watching, witnessing this. So finally they hit him with a third tranquilizer. He was still up there. He ate a couple leaves. He was just chilling. I said it on here. He looked cute. He looked very peaceful, unbothered. But finally, when he got hit with that third tranquilizer, he climbed down the tree by himself, so he didn't fall out or anything, which was nice. He was nice and safe, got down to the ground, just, eventually went unconscious, and then the firemen were able to put him on a tarp, and they all carried him over to the cage where the conservation specialist had it prepared to take him out to the country and then stay with him until he was able to wake up and roam free.
So how many people did it take to drag him on the tarp? How big was this bear? How much did it weigh? Do you know?
Everyone was saying, from what I heard, people were guessing anywhere between 300 to 400 pounds. He was really probably about 200 pounds. It was a pretty big bear. I mean, if you were to see it in person, just walking in front of your car out on the street, I would be absolutely alarmed. But it took about 10 firemen to get him on a tarp and really carry him over. He wasn't the biggest bear I've ever seen, but he was a good size for sure.
So when you're standing there and you're reporting, but if you're standing there for 3 hours, you're probably getting to talk to a lot of different folks. And as you said, you have the conservation department there. So were they able to find out where this bear came from, how it got into the neighborhood here, and then also what they're going to do with it afterwards? You said they're going to take it out to the country, but any details on all that?
So there was no indication of where the bear actually came from because it wasn't tagged. So the specialist there, his name was Tom Meister. He was the first one to tag this bear. They tagged both ears, so if he ever roams back, we're going to know it's him. And like I said, his name is Lewis, everybody. So if you ever see Lewis back here, he really is. He's a St. Louis bear. But no, and everyone was actually really funny about it. Like I said, he kind of became the celebrity of the day. Everyone was following him. Everyone there taking pictures and videos. Just can't really believe that there was a bear in St. Louis County. And it was a fun thing. One of the group of guys I talked to, they're like, we don't like Cubs here, so he's got to go. And I was like, right on, go Cards.
Love it. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so what they're going to do is now that he's down and he's been tagged, like I said, they're just going to take him out into a remote area. They're going to let him go. But they're saying that these black bears we're going to start seeing a lot more of them. Tom said this is going to kind of become the new normal because these bears populations are starting to increase so rapidly, and the male bears stray off on their own. So they're trying to get away from these new bear families that are getting created, the new males that are coming up. So we might start seeing some more bear sightings in St. Louis.
I love it. We're talking with Mikala. Now I'm going to call you Money McGhee because before we let you go, because this is a sports show, I got to brag on you a little bit because every time I go to Pattonville, I feel like they have, statues of you. You have every record in every sport. So for people that don't know, and they should, because I remember back when you were in high school, an amazing athlete. So tell us you played soccer, basketball, softball. I remember somebody at Pattonville said you could have went D1 in any of those sports, but you played basketball, right? Tell people about your collegiate hoops career.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it was a ride. I went to 3 different colleges, 3 different Division I colleges for basketball, but had an amazing time at all. I started at Missouri State, did my freshman, sophomore year there, then went to George Mason University out in Fairfax, Virginia, finished up my junior, senior year, graduated from there, and then did a post-grad transfer to Florida Gulf Coast University down in Fort Myers, Florida, where I was able to go to the NCAA tournament. We won a conference championship. So I played under some great coaches, had a lot of success with the teams that I was on, and got to travel a lot of places and see a lot of things. So I definitely cannot complain.
That's awesome. And I remember when Florida Gulf Coast made their run with the men's team years ago. I remember they showed the dorms. They looked like the coolest housing ever. Right on the beach, right? I mean, is some of the dorms or college housing right there on the beach and people are partying?
Listen, I don't mean to sound biased here, but Florida Gulf Coast is a very slept-on school. It is right on the beach. I mean, we have a beach on campus, and they rent out water sports. You can go jet skiing or what's it called, where you stand up and do a paddleboard. So you can do all of that right on campus, and then we're 15 minutes away from Fort Myers Beach. We're 30 minutes away from Naples Beach. We're 2 hours from Miami. We're 3 hours from Orlando. We're an hour and a half away from Tampa. I mean, it was just the best time. You can't wake up and be mad when you see palm trees. So it's really just kind of like the best situation for a student athlete whenever you can get around, complete your education and then also just live in a beautiful environment. That
is awesome. Mikala Money McGhee, she covers sports. She covers bears. She does it all. Thanks, Mikala. Appreciate it.
No problem, Charlie. I'll see you soon.
All right. That's Mikala Money McGhee. She was an awesome athlete at Pattonville. And then, as she said, played in college at a bunch of different schools, playing hoops. But she could have played soccer and softball as well. Mikala Money McGhee, she does sports with us on Friday nights for the prep sports, football, and basketball as well.